Hello, Aries. Hello to the one who keeps living with the fire of truth burning in your heart, even when this world tries to make you doubt yourself. I know there are days when you feel tired, not because you've done anything wrong, but because you are too real in a world covered by too many masks. You stepped into this life like a flame, bright, unapologetic, and unafraid to shine. And that very flame unintentionally exposes those who live in the dark. You don't need to shrink yourself to reveal them. No accusations, no arguments. Just your presence, your eyes, your honesty in every word. It's already a mirror so raw, so true that it makes pretenses crumble. And in that mirror, those who live with deceit can't help but see themselves being uncovered. Aries, you were never born to play the saint and certainly not to be the judge. You are simply you. And that alone is powerful enough to shake an entire room full of lies. You may have asked yourself, why did they betray me when I've never done them any harm? Because, my dear Aries, not everyone has the courage to face true sincerity. Because living honestly is something that scares people more than anything. Do you remember the last time you spoke your truth and someone turned away? They didn't leave because you were wrong. They left because they couldn't bear your light. And that is not a failure. That is a cleansing. So stay true to who you are, Aries. Even if they leave, even if they whisper behind your back, never dim that flame. Because you are living proof that a person can live without lies, without schemes, and without being broken by the coldness of the world. Your strength doesn't come from striking back. It comes from never letting the dirt of others stain your soul. And one day when they look back, they'll understand. What truly scared them was never you. It was themselves, reflected in the light you so effortlessly shine. In this world, where everyone is trying to hide a part of who they are, you are the brave one because you hide nothing. And that transparency is your greatest weapon. No accusations, no revenge, no lowering yourself. They expose themselves. They crumble in a light you never even tried to create. And you just keep walking forward with your eyes clear and your heart free of regret. So don't let old scars close off your light, because that light has an even greater power. It doesn't just push the darkness back. It invites goodness to return to you, a power quiet but unstoppable, a law, one that even the universe must bow to, a cycle where every good thing you have ever given is being gathered and will return to you multiplied at the right time in the right way, through the right people. Aries, listen to this. Nothing you've ever given is truly lost. Not a kind word whispered through the noise of gossip. Not a hand you reached out when no one else did. Not even the forgiveness you offered to someone who never said sorry. The universe, even in silence, misses nothing. It doesn't keep a ledger. It needs no witnesses, because every honest vibration from your heart has already been woven into the thread of destiny beneath your feet. You've loved with all the purity you had. You've trusted with the full blaze of a fire that never doubted. And yes, at times, you were met with betrayal, deception, or the kind of silence that replaced what should have been a thank you. And in those moments, you may have wondered, is this fair? Can a world where the kind ones lose still be trusted? But Aries, fairness doesn't always show up right away. It doesn't come like a verdict shouted in a courtroom. It moves quietly underground like water beneath the earth, steady, patient. And when it surfaces, it does so in a moment no one expects. Whatever was done to you, it'll come back to them in a way only the universe can design. At the very moment they need to learn the lesson. And you don't need to wait for that justice, because every seed of goodness you planted is being watched over, nurtured. It may not bloom in the field you hoped for, but it will bloom in a time and place you need it most. Every time you chose patience over rage, the universe noticed. Every time you stayed kind, even while hurt. Every time you refused to return pain with more pain, the universe took note. True justice doesn't lie in someone being punished. It lives in you, receiving something deeper, richer, a return far greater than what you gave. And maybe one day, as you smile in the quiet sunlight of peace, you'll realize the universe never forgot you. It was just working in silence, doing what was right. So if you've ever felt your kindness went unseen, think again. If you've ever felt small in the face of injustice, lift your head, because every spark you've given, the universe is turning into a flame bright enough to light the path ahead. No one can take away what you gave in sincerity, and no one can steal the reward that's already written just for you. Because the greatest reward isn't someone else paying the price. It's you realizing that your heart is still whole, still soft, still warm, still yours. And in that quiet moment, when you choose to keep walking without needing anyone to validate you, that's when the universe begins to open new doors. Doors that, sometimes, just standing in front of them feels like a miracle. And when you finally dare to walk through, you're not just entering a new chapter, you're stepping into a new life. One where enemies no longer matter and you become the one they can't figure out. How could someone who's been through so much still be this strong, still this gentle, still walking forward without bitterness? Maybe it's because you're not just a flame. You're a flame that knows how to rise again. And maybe, just maybe, what changes this world isn't the storm, but a single stubborn spark that refuses to go out. Dear Aries, I know you've fallen before, not just once, maybe more times than you care to admit. Some falls left you breathless, not from physical pain, but from betrayal, from cruel words, from the silence of someone you once believed would never walk away. But what sets you apart is that you never stayed down. Every time you got back up, you weren't just moving forward, you were making a quiet, powerful statement. I was never defeated. You may have cried. You may have felt hollow in the middle of the night. You may have lost faith for a moment. But somehow, someway, you managed to reignite that flame inside you, soft at first, but warm enough to reach even the broken corners of your heart. And that is what leaves your enemies speechless. They thought one push would be enough to keep you down. They believed one wound would destroy your belief in yourself. But they forgot you weren't made of glass. You were made of fire. And fire, even when extinguished, always finds a way to burn again, brighter than before. Yes, they may have seen you fall. But when they looked back expecting ruin, what they found instead was a new version of you, stronger, quieter, more focused, and far more dangerous to anyone who ever underestimated you. You didn't strike back with rage. You didn't fight with words. You let your healing speak for itself. Every time you rebuilt a part of your life that was torn down, you were doing something they never saw coming. You kept living, and you lived. Even better, you know this, Aries. The world is full of people who fall, but not everyone knows how to rise. Some let pain harden their hearts, but not you. You turned pain into fuel. You never denied the wounds, but you never let them define you either. You walked through them, and that is what makes you radiant. Remember this, Aries, you don't need to do anything dramatic to shake the ground beneath those who once hurt you. All you have to do is keep living with kindness, keep loving, keep building a life you're proud of. Every smile you carry after the storm is a silent anthem, one that says, you're stronger than they ever imagined, and one day when they look back, they won't see someone broken. They'll see a warrior, calm, unbothered, unshakable. So if you're on your way back from a fall right now, don't rush it. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to pretend you're okay. Just breathe. Just take one quiet step at a time and trust that even the smallest step can mark the beginning of a powerful return. Because Aries, you weren't born to stay down. You were born to rise again and again until the world finally understands. There's no force strong enough to put out the fire in your soul. And while you're quietly gathering the pieces, something else is quietly at work too. Like an underground river beneath the surface. Something most people can't see but the universe does. Something that makes even the stars bow to your unwavering spirit. Because sometimes a fall isn't the end. It's the collapse of what was never meant to stay in your life. So you can finally stand where only the worthy belong. Aries, there's a kind of pain that leaves no blood, no shouting, no clear accusations. It slips in quietly like a knife to the back. And you know that kind of pain not just once, but more times than you've ever said aloud. Betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the one you trusted the most, the one you stood up for, the one you shielded when they were weak, the one you never thought would walk away. And yet somehow, they did. No goodbye, no explanation, just silence, and you left standing there with 1,000 questions and no answers. Maybe you tried to make sense of it. Maybe you blamed yourself. Maybe it hurt so much you thought, if only I hadn't been so genuine. But Aries, don't do that to yourself. Don't let someone else's betrayal tarnish what's beautiful in you. Because eventually you'll see betrayal is a double-edged sword. When someone chooses to betray you, they don't just break the bond between you, they dig a hole in their own trust. And one day they'll fall into it themselves, not because you wanted revenge, but because what we sow always finds its way back. You don't need hate, you don't need revenge. Life has a long memory. It doesn't forget, it doesn't forgive quickly, But it doesn't rush either. It waits. And in the most unexpected moment, it brings a quiet reckoning, sharp and costly. You won't need to see it. You won't need to hear an apology. You just need to know betrayal is a mirror. And one day the betrayer will have to face themselves in that mirror. When there's no one left to listen, no one left to forgive, no one left who understands them the way you once did, the consequence doesn't always come as punishment. Sometimes it comes as loss of something they'll never find again. Because someone like you, so sincere, so honest, so clear, doesn't come around twice in a lifetime. So Aries, set yourself free first. Don't let the wound make you lose faith in the goodness of life. See it as a cleansing, a test, a shedding of old skin. You don't have to pretend you're not hurt. Let yourself feel it truly, and then move forward, not with resentment but with the lesson, because in the end, those who plant storms will reap them. And you, the one who's been knocked down by the wind, you'll be the one still standing. And while someone else clings to the mask they chose to wear, you, the one who dared to be real, to trust, to love, you're the one chosen to receive something deeper. A kind of redemption that doesn't come from people, but from the sacred balance of life itself. Because sometimes the punishment isn't in what you lose, but in what they let slip through their hands forever. And you, Aries, you keep walking, you carry no darkness, only the light, just enough to guide you through the next chapter of your journey, where what once felt like loss becomes the doorway to something miraculous. Dear Aries, people don't always walk away because they're cruel. Sometimes it's simply because they're not deep enough to understand the kind of love you offered. You belong to the rare few who give without counting. When you love completely. When you help someone, you never ask for anything back. And when you say, "I'm here," you mean it, even when everyone else has left. And because of that, you've often been a safe harbor for tired souls. Souls that came through storms, only to disappear the moment the skies cleared. Maybe you've been forgotten. Maybe you were seen as a stop, not a destination. They took warmth from your fire, stayed just long enough to feel safe, and left without looking back. And there you were, still standing, still open, still honest, but now with a quiet crack in your chest where something beautiful used to be. Maybe you asked yourself, was I foolish? Do I need to change? But no, Aries, don't change the way you love. Just choose more carefully where you place that love, because the world isn't short on takers, but it is short on people who truly value what they're given. Karma, or whatever name we give it, has a strange way of teaching. It doesn't strike like thunder, it simply takes away. It removes what they once had from you. No more loyalty, no more patience. No one left to see the good in them, like you once did. And then they'll realize warmth isn't guaranteed. Not everyone opens their arms, and the scariest part isn't being rejected. It's when there's no one left to do the rejecting. Only then will they remember you, not as someone special, but as something rare, something they'll never find again. You don't need to see it happen. You don't have to hope for it. Life knows how to return everything to where it belongs. All you need to do is learn to save your fire for those truly worthy of it. And that is the deepest kind of victory. You didn't become cold. You simply learned where to place your heart. Because in the end, everyone has a moment of weakness. Everyone needs someone who shows up, no conditions, no games, and they'll realize that someone already existed. They stood right there and were lost to an ungratefulness they didn't even notice. But you, Aries, you've moved on, not in distance, but in awareness. You're no longer the one who gives too quickly. You've become the one who protects the most beautiful parts of yourself for those mature enough to hold them. And in that quiet process of growth, the universe, it gives you something back. Not applause, not someone else's downfall, but a gift, a sharper intuition, a softer but stronger boundary, a trust that no longer wavers so easily. And from here on, you start to learn something new. Not everyone takes advantage. Not everyone is ungrateful. There are some who don't come to take from your fire, but to keep it burning with you. And when you meet them, Aries, you'll understand why. The ungrateful ones had to leave first. Aries, have you ever walked into a room without saying a single word and still felt the entire atmosphere shift? Have you ever just shown up somewhere and suddenly the silence thickens, truth begins to surface, and what was hidden starts to reveal itself? That's not power, that's light. And light doesn't need to speak to be seen. It doesn't try to prove itself. It doesn't argue, it doesn't threaten, it simply shows up. And somehow, that's enough. You, Aries, you are that light. Not because of your status, your success, or anyone's praise, but because of the way you live, because of the clarity in your gaze, the way you're honest with yourself, the way your heart refuses to carry anything false. Out there in the world, there are people who have grown comfortable in the dark. They fear truth because truth demands courage. They avoid clarity because it strips away their masks. So when you walk in, saying nothing, blaming no one, they still feel threatened, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your light reflects the shadows they've tried so hard not to face. You become a mirror, not because you want to expose anyone, but because you live so truthfully that others can't help but see themselves clearly when they are near you. And sometimes, that alone makes you a target. You get misunderstood, resented, even pushed out of spaces you never even asked to belong to. But Aries, you weren't born to comfort the dark. You were born to shine, not by dimming anyone else, but by simply being present. So if someone feels uneasy around you, remember, maybe it's not because you shine too much, but because they've never learned how to stand accountable in that light. Light always stings the eyes that have spent too long in the dark, but don't let that make you shrink. Don't dim yourself just to make others more comfortable. You don't need to apologize for being who you are, because your presence alone might be the very thing that wakes a lost soul up. Sometimes, Aries, just walking into the room is enough to remind someone that it's still possible to live honestly. So even on the days when your light feels lonely, stay steady, because somewhere out there are places and people waiting for someone like you to arrive, so they can finally find the courage to take off the mask they've worn for far too long. And maybe the most powerful thing light ever does isn't just to reveal what's wrong, but to awaken what's right, because where true light lives, that's where life begins. And you, Aries, you are the beginning of quiet transformation, a light that doesn't scream, a flame that doesn't beg for attention, but still manages to bring hidden truths to the surface. And light that holds steady through the storm becomes the kind of light that can soften a hardened conscience, even the conscience of those who once turned their backs on you, but now realize they can't outrun what your light has already shown them. Aries, there are things in this life that can't be seen, that can't be judged by outsiders, but they have the power to quietly eat away at a person night after night, moment after moment. And that thing is called the conscience. You've been hurt by the people you trusted most. They did wrong, then turned away. They lied, then acted like nothing happened. They stabbed you in the back and left you bleeding alone. But here's what's strange. They kept smiling, kept moving on, as if remorse never even crossed their minds. And you've stood there watching from a distance, wondering, why do the ones who did wrong seem so at peace, while you, the one who loved truly, who lived honestly, carry all the pain? But Aries, that's just the surface, because there's something the eyes can't see, but it shines just as bright as a spotlight in the dark. It's the quiet voice of the conscience. Those who hurt someone real, someone who loved from the heart, they're never truly at peace. Sure, they might hide it. They might fill their days with noise, with work, with distractions, with fleeting moments of fun. But when night falls and everything goes still, when their head hits the pillow, a silence speaks louder than anything else. A question they're too scared to answer. A look they once turned away from. A hand they let go too soon. And yes, they remember you not just as someone from the past, but as a part of their conscience they can never reclaim. And the most powerful thing is, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to yell. You don't have to expose the truth. You don't need to prove who was right or wrong, because your silence is the loudest bell ringing inside them. You say nothing, but your peace is their greatest nightmare, because you're living without owing anyone an apology, while they owe themselves a confession. Conscience is the fairest judge. It's not fast, it's not dramatic, but it's persistent. It's there every morning they wake up, every time they meet a genuine gaze, every time they see someone living the way you once did. And one day, when the world outside finally quiets down, all they'll be left with is themselves. And in that stillness, your silence will become the loudest voice in their life. So Aries, don't worry if they never come back to apologize. Don't be sad if they never admit what they did. You don't need that to forgive. You don't need their approval to move forward. Your peace is the clearest confirmation that you did right. And life, in its own quiet, perfect way, will show them that truth one way or another. Because some things don't need punishment to be paid for. Just a whisper that never stops echoing in the heart. And while they're still trying to silence that voice, you, Aries, you've already moved on toward the light. toward things that are pure and worthy, and maybe, just maybe, that's when life opens a new door for you. Not a door to escape through, but a place calm enough for you to simply be yourself. Once again, Aries, have you ever been hurt so deeply that you couldn't even put it into words? Not because you didn't know what to say, but because you understood. Some things don't need to be explained, because the one who hurt you, they were never going to listen. And the one who truly understands you would never ask you to speak. That's when you begin to learn a different kind of silence. Not the silence of pain, but the silence of someone quietly moving on. You don't post about it, you don't explain, you don't try to fight back. Instead, you do the most powerful thing of all. You live, you keep waking up early, you keep working, you keep nurturing dreams others once thought you'd never reach. You love life more, you take better care of yourself. You choose friends who truly care, and step by step, you rebuild what was once shattered into a life more beautiful than ever before. That, Aries, is what sets you apart. You don't seek revenge. You don't expose anyone. You don't need someone to fall to their knees and say they're sorry. Because the way you keep moving forward sends a message louder than words. I'm still here. And I'm okay, not because someone apologized, but because I chose to heal anyway. You understand now, not everyone deserves to see you rise. Not everyone deserves to walk with you to the finish line. And the miracle is, you still made it even without the people who once stood beside you. Your growth, Aries, is the softest form of strength. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't need to be shared online. It's there in the calm of your gaze, in the steadiness of your step, in the choices you now make without the fear you once carried. And when they look back, the ones who doubted you, left you, underestimated you, they won't see a broken Aries. They'll see someone new, wiser, stronger, and far beyond their reach. Because sometimes, the best response isn't an accusation. It's a life so beautifully lived that no one can call you by your past anymore. You become living proof that no one defines you but you. And no one can extinguish your fire once you've learned how to reignite it every single day. And here's the most beautiful part, Aries, when you no longer need anyone to validate your worth. That's when life starts bringing you what you truly deserve. A chance at just the right moment. A person who sees you clearly. A new path without the weight of what came before. Because some progress doesn't need to be spoken to be real. It's seen in the way your eyes now meet the world. And sometimes, it's in your quiet steps forward that the universe finally starts walking toward you too. Aries, life doesn't move in a straight line, flows in spirals up and down, coming and going, falling apart and coming back together. Some people pass through your life like a breeze, but leave behind scars deeper than the time they stayed. And some mistakes, the ones you thought were the end, turn out to be detours that lead you right back to yourself. The beautiful thing is, life always offers a second chance. But Aries, it's never free. You know that better than anyone. You've fallen, you've lost. You've questioned your own worth, but still, you chose to rise. Not because you forgot the pain, but because you refused to let it write the final line of your story. A second chance for you wasn't something soft or simple. You didn't step into it with the same innocence. You stepped in with caution, with depth, with a clear sense of who deserves a seat in your life. You didn't repeat old lessons. You rewrote yourself with hands no longer shaking. But not everyone does the same, Aries. The ones who once hurt you, they were given second chances too, but many of them wasted it. They walked the same roads, made the same poor choices, thinking luck would always be on their side. What they didn't understand is this life doesn't hand out grace forever. A second chance isn't a reward, it's a test. And if you don't learn from the first fall, sooner or later you'll face the consequences. Not from the outside, but from deep within. You don't need to wish that upon them. You don't need to wait for life to make things right. Let life teach them, in ways you never have to, because you, Aries, you used your second chance to become someone you're proud of. You didn't let the past define you. You learned how to close painful chapters, not because you forgot, but because you grew strong enough to let them go. And then you realize, forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's refusing to let the past hold your future hostage. The truth is, what makes you stronger every day isn't that no one hurts you anymore. It's that you no longer let the pain pull your heart off course. You've learned how to walk away when you need to, how to open your heart without losing yourself, and more than anything, you've learned this. There are people you once wished would stay. But now, you know they had to leave, so life could teach them the lessons meant only for them. Because everyone has their own cycle, their own spiral, and every soul, sooner or later, must harvest what it has sown. And you, Aries, you keep going, not in bitterness, but in clarity, not to prove anything to anyone, but to live a life you won't regret when you look back. Because sometimes the most powerful way to end an old chapter is to begin a new one that's deeper, steadier, more complete, and maybe that new chapter begins with something as simple as this: a long, quiet breath and a whisper in your heart. I've learned my lesson, and I've chosen to move on. Aries, there's a kind of victory the world can't see. No applause, no trophies, no one publicly celebrating you, but it's the most sacred victory a soul can ever claim. Inner peace. You see, people can take a lot from you: your trust, your time, your love, even your reputation. But there's one thing they can never touch: the stillness in your heart. Once you've learned not to react from the same place that hurt you, you don't need revenge, because you understand. Revenge is for the ones still chained to what broke them. But you, Aries, you've learned to let go, not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to know that peace is worth more than being right. You don't need to win the argument, you just need to win your own life. And one day when you walk past the ones who once hurt you, with a heart that no longer holds resentment, you'll realize that's the day you truly became free. You don't need an apology, you don't need an explanation, you don't need anyone to understand you, because you've understood yourself. And in that understanding, you chose the kindest thing you could ever do for your soul: to forgive them, and to forgive yourself. Aries, peace isn't the absence of storms. It's the ability to stand in the middle of chaos and not let it pull you under. You might still cry, but you no longer collapse. You might still feel pain, but it doesn't rule you anymore. You no longer see life through broken eyes, but through the gaze of someone who pieced themselves back together and now knows. Not everyone who starts the journey with you is meant to stay till the end. The stronger you are, the less you need to prove. And you, Aries, you've grown stronger than anyone who ever tried to shrink you. Not because you shouted louder, but because you stood tall, lived true, and moved with grace in ways no one could copy. So if today there's a calm in your heart, no more anger, no more bitterness, then congratulations, Aries. You've reached something this entire world is aching for: peace. And no one can take that from you unless you hand it over. Guard it like a slow-burning flame. A soft inner light, a place inside yourself you can return to whenever the world gets too loud. And when you live from that light, that purest part of you, the universe will take care of the rest. Karma will arrive right on time. The guilty will face their own conscience, and the truth will rise, always. As for you, Aries, all you need to do is keep living as you were made to be: fiery, honest, unshakable. That is your greatest answer, your rarest gift, and something no one can pretend to have. Thank you for being here, Aries, for listening not just with your ears but with your heart. If you saw yourself in these words, hold them close, like a quiet lantern in the dark, to guide you back to the truth, back to the light, back to you. I'm the storyteller, and I believe as long as there's fire in your heart, nothing, no one can ever extinguish you. Until next time, on a new journey where we no longer speak of pain, but begin to speak of light. Wishing you peace, Aries, and don't forget, keep burning bright.